I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and please note that the meeting is being electronically recorded. We'll begin tonight's meeting with the open forum session. Would anyone like to address the school committee during open forum? Seeing no one, that will close open forum, and we'll move on to our consent agenda, beginning with a motion to accept a donation of $1,367 from Chestnut Hill Studios to the gifts donation budget lines of Attleboro High School and Hyman Fine Elementary School, with the allocations divided pursuant to the school committee memo of January 10th, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion accepted. Motion to accept a donation of $10,275.32 from La Parade Studio to the gifts donation budget lines of Coelho Middle School, Wamsutta Middle School, Hill Roberts Elementary School, Thatcher Elementary School, Willett Elementary School, and the Early Learning Center, with the allocations divided pursuant to the school committee memo of January 10th, 2015.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to accept a donation of the book Snowflakes Fall by Patricia McClellan to the Studley Elementary School Library from the Massachusetts Teachers Association.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation of 4 Through a Dog's Eyes books by John Gafford to the Attleboro school system.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Our first discussion item tonight comes from our student representative, Mr. Stowe. Mr. Stowe will be sharing some information about a very special and important event that will be coming to the district on January 25th.
Yep.
January 25th. We've discussed it here on a number of occasions, but as this is our final formal meeting prior to this event, we wanted to make sure that the community was aware of it. So, Mr. Stowe, take it away.
So FAFSA Day is this year on January 25th, which is 2 Sundays from now, from 1 to 4 p.m. The FAFSA is a financial aid form that students fill out to apply for financial aid at colleges. So it's meant to help them obviously get more money to go to college so that more students can get into their colleges. There's a lot of students that go to it. There's even students that are going to this one that aren't even from Massachusetts. So they're from Rhode Island, other Massachusetts schools, etc. Financial aid officers actually will be there, like college financial aid officers, to help the students fill out their forms, because it's been seen by guidance counselors, teachers, and more people that the students and their families hadn't been filling out the forms to their full potential, so that they were basically just losing money that they could have gotten to go to their colleges. So the financial aid officers are there to help them fill it out better. The sign-up is on FAFSA.org, and you just click on the Attleboro link, and it's free, so it doesn't cost anything. There's a potential to leave with a full FAFSA form. Not necessarily that you will, but there's a potential that it will be completely filled out by the time you leave.
Right. Again, when we've had representatives from the high school guidance department in over the past several months, this is an event that they rightfully feel very proud that they have been able to secure the opportunity for this to be hosted in Attleboro. Historically, members of our community have needed to travel varying distances to receive this information and attend this event, and we're certainly grateful to Ms. Little and everyone in the guidance department who helped secure this opportunity for the community. We appreciate Mr. Stowe and the Student Advisory Council helping to spread the news about it. I know there'll be postings about this through various media over the coming weeks, but it's certainly the committee's hope that folks will take advantage of this and go and participate in this event. So thank you very much, Mr. Stowe. Our next agenda item is being presented by Mr. Sawyer, our Assistant Superintendent. This is a grant funding request which, under current school committee policy, requires an authorization by the committee, and I believe that this is an opportunity that will be benefiting the career and technical education program at the high school.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, thank you. The CT department, specifically the engineering program, applied for a grant, and we've been awarded $68,880, mostly to purchase new computers that will be able to run the software that has been identified as being necessary to bring that program forward to even better heights. Most of this project is centered on robotics, which is very exciting to expand what we're doing with that.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee for Mr. Sawyer or anyone from the administration? Mr. Storrs.
I went on the website, I was taking a look, and because we're below a certain amount, there's no matching, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And the only other question I had was regarding the robotic kits. That's not something that's reusable, that's something that has to be replenished every year?
I'm not sure, but I imagine that there's a replacement cost involved.
Any other questions? Mr. Larson.
I'm thrilled to see that SolidWorks is coming to the high school, because it's a program that they can use in a lot of different industries. And so there's definitely, I mean, it's the software that people are in the industries right now are using, so it's great to see the kids having access to it.
Yes.
Mr. Tyler.
No, I'm very glad to see this grant too, but I'm glad overall that we're being recognized in Attleboro for our CTE program. I think as most of us know, we're only like 14 programs in all of Massachusetts that have a comprehensive high school like this, and it's important. You know, I think I stressed this to the superintendent of the schools a couple weeks ago. You know, I think we're all reading in the paper right now that we have kids coming out of college that have a $100,000 deficit hanging over their head after a 4-year college, and I feel bad for them. But our CTE program gives kids another opportunity and to get into some good paying jobs, possibly, you know, a couple of years right after high school. So it's really valuable. I'm glad to see that we're reaching out and grabbing grants for these programs. And it's what makes us different, Attleboro, from a lot of surrounding communities. So again, I'm glad that we got this grant, and I hope we keep reaching out for that, because I think the CTE program across the board should be strongly supported. And I thank you for that, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Any other, Mr. Storrs?
The after-school, middle-school robotics, because that seems to be such a perfect gateway into that program, that's only at one middle school?
Yes,
Is there any possibility or plans to look into expanding that to the
without
others?
question.
Thank you.
And I think some plans have, I think the momentum is building in that direction. My understanding was that in the second half of this school year, it may be being implemented, at least at Brennan, possibly at Coelho. Does anyone know that that's?
I know that it may go to one, I'm not sure about the third.
Okay.
But we're looking at all three.
Okay, that's my understanding, so I hope that that's the case, because otherwise we shouldn't have let those Cincinnati guys off the stage last week. But I believe it is, so. Thank you again, and I'll just a quick general comment. As Mr. Tyler said, it's the fact that Attleboro is one of the only true comprehensive high schools in the Commonwealth is a distinguishing characteristic to this district. And I think it's always been interesting to me that I think at times, because of its existence is tied to our history as a community and where our school system was in the late 70s, independent of that, the programs that are in existence now really do provide opportunities that you're not going to get if you go to high school elsewhere. So I think that obviously we're grateful to have the program here and to have the opportunities for our students to enjoy. And I think that we as a school committee and as a district need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to effectively communicate the benefits of these programs to Attleboro and the surrounding community. I do think that's something that we could do better from a leadership standpoint, to make sure that this word is getting out there and make sure that that message is going forth. So certainly things like this grant opportunity make that much easier. So a motion to approve the request for the grant approval.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Okay, so we'll move on to the item that I just skipped over, and I apologize to Representative Farrell for that. If you could join the committee, Representative Farrell. No, it's not. Grab a seat. I mean, who knows how long you've been here. Just kidding. Mr. Haro, thank you very much for joining us. I think the committee is well aware that Mr. Haro has been advocating in a robust manner on behalf of the district for some time now to secure the necessary funding at the state level for the internet infrastructure upgrade that this district so badly needs. The news last week was not entirely positive in that our district was not selected for the first round of funding, but the news was not entirely negative either, I know, because that fight is going to go on. So I'd ask the representative to brief the committee, let us know where we are and how we got here. And then, but before that, I'll just say that I know I speak for the superintendent as well, because we're on both of these emails, but the frequency with which you've kept us informed and the way in which you've made sure that we know as the legislative process and the regulatory process unfolds where we stand, we're very grateful to you, and thank you for your advocacy. So with that, if I turn it over to Representative Farrell, and perhaps you could just tell us where we stand.
Okay, well, Mr. Chairman, through you, thank you to the committee. Basically, we had an opportunity to get, an opportunity just as good as anybody else to get money for school internet infrastructure. My job as the, legislator was to come up, I came up with this program, pushed for it at the state level. It went all the way, which is, very good. And so in a way, I brought us right up to the 5-yard line. When we applied for the grant, we just were beaten out by other school districts. I'm not sure why. I haven't seen the application that was submitted from Attleboro to, DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for viewers. But there is hope, though, because the Governor, Patrick, he had appropriated $5 million. So there's still another $33 million out there that Governor Baker can appropriate. So what I'm going to be doing going forward is trying to sort of manage up. And by that I mean I've already started working with folks in DESE to tell the new, administration, the new Secretary of Education. We still have Mitchell Chester, the same commissioner, but basically to push it up to the governor, hey, spend the next $33 million, or at least a good portion of it, so we can reapply. As you know, and I copied Superintendent Sheehan on this as well, I requested 3 applications that were successful from DESE for school districts that got money, so that way we can learn what the school districts asked for, like what their approach was to be successful on the application, and hopefully those will be utilized. And if you need more than 3, just let me know, and I could get certainly more than 3. I can ask for as many as we want, but then I'll supply those to you, and then we can apply for it again, provided the governor decides to spend some of this money, hoping he will.
Yeah. Any tea leaf reading from Beacon Hill as of yet as to where the new administration stands on the potential appropriation?
No, not yet, because it's the new administration just was sworn in last week on Wednesday, but nothing yet. But the folks within DESE, Commissioner Chester, they, presumably the new Secretary of Education, they all want the money because it only benefits our schools throughout the Commonwealth. I mean, $38 million was good for 600 schools. The $5 million that was authorized went out to 47 school districts. And as I mentioned in the emails back and forth we had last week, we just missed getting money. There was, for the urban category, which Attleboro falls in, we missed by about 2 spots. The first 7 got it, and then number 8 did not, and then Attleboro was tied with Milford for number 9, and so basically 8 and 9 didn't get it. So, but there is hope for the future, though.
Well, more than that, I mean, there's a lot of hope for the future. I mean, we're certainly, it's one of the things we talked about, and we've had this discussion before, that we need to be sure that as we sort of proceed along parallel tracks and trying to secure as much support from the Commonwealth as we can, that we're also exploring every potential possibility at the municipal level as well, because this is a project, and again, we haven't talked about this specific issue in the last month or 2, but essentially we are in a variety of ways expanding our technology utilization within the district. There are teachers that are thinking creatively. We heard from a couple of them in November during our spotlight meeting, and we're seeing the ways in which technology can pay dividends for our students, but we have some infrastructure issues in this district. We've got to have accessible and reliable wireless. We have them in some spots, and we don't have them in others, and that's certainly it's not something that can go forward indefinitely in the future. But again, your advocacy and the degree to which you've made sure to both keep us informed and to advocate on behalf of the district is appreciated.
Well, while I have your attention, there's one other issue I want to mention, just briefly, won't take a second. As a rep, we get to ask the Ways and Means, this is switching gears a bit to something else, homeless student transportation, McKinney-Vento. As a rep, we get to ask Ways and Means for 3 budget priorities when we meet with the Ways and Means chair for the upcoming budget for FY16. And just so you guys know, I'm going to be putting McKinney-Vento, and I did last time, as one of my 3 budget priorities so we can get full funding for it. Whether or not that happens, who knows? Last time I asked for it, we were level funded essentially, and then I got 44 co-sponsors, including different chairs from different committees, to co-sponsor my amendment to the budget. Once again, that was basically struck down. Very unfortunate. Another local rep filed the same exact amendment to fully fund it, and this other local rep only had 3 or 4 co-sponsors. I got 44. So there's several of us are working on this, and well, I'll say this very candidly: we don't practice democracy up there. We just try and create it, but we
Appreciate the candor.
yeah, I get in trouble for
That's
saying
the-
stuff like that, but it's the
citizens
truth. But yeah, basically, that's going to be one of my 3 budget priorities, and I just want to let you guys know that it's on my radar, and I'll be asking Ways and Means to fully fund that, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Mr. Tyler.
Representative Moreau, thank you very much for being the original supporter of this bill. I can't believe it actually took this long, and I do want to express my gratitude for you for doing that. And hopefully we will make the next round of this.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions that has always been asked of me is why we don't get any special status since we were granted a gateway city. Now, does that have anything to do with the application process? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Paul.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say, is there something that we missed out on that?
Well, I wasn't part of the writing out the grant, proposal, so I don't know. I haven't seen Attleboro's application to DESE. I don't believe one of the questions was whether or not is your community or your school district fall within a gateway city. I don't believe that was one of the questions, and if it had, it might have boosted our score up, because the score was. I was told it was ranked on 0 to 140, but as I looked at the application, it was actually 0 to 160. So every school that applied, there were about 95 schools that applied, they got a score, and the highest ranking score was 118. Nobody maxed out at 140 or 160. The lowest ranking school district, if you can believe it, got 5 points. Attleboro got 74 points, 75 points. So I'm not sure what the contents of the application was. I wasn't part of the group that filled out the application for the grant. Next time around, I'd like to be, and that would be great, because I've been in contact with, DESE about this project, from day one. I mean, I was the one that came up with the idea to do this. And so, I think it'll having more hands in the pot will only strengthen our application next time. But why gateway cities, as I understand it, has nothing to do with this. Gateways probably should, and that's something I can mention to DESE when they do the application next time, if the governor authorizes more money, appropriates more money, because it makes sense. I mean, one of the factors with the gateway city status is the 3 factors: your population, your median household income, and your educational achievement of the citizens living there. And so this would lend to improving educational achievement of the citizens living there. So it would make sense to have that as one of the variables. And like I said, I haven't seen the application we submitted, so I don't know if that was, included in it.
So, from a timeline standpoint, we anticipate that the governor will have to make a decision as to whether or not there's going to be a further appropriation, and then DESE will set timelines with regard to a new application
Just like the
process.
last time. It's just like what happened under Governor Patrick. The House, in the Senate, we authorized the money, $38 million. So we authorized the state to run up the debt. The governor then decides whether or not he's going to run up the debt. Governor Patrick only decided to run up $5 million. Governor Baker, hopefully he'll decide to run up a little more. And when I say run up the debt, that's what it is doing. But this is good debt, because we get a return on our investment. So there's good debt and bad debt, and this is a good investment, is what it is.
Any other questions for Representative Farrow? Okay, Mr. Arona, thank you again for coming in. I want to thank you again for your advocacy. I know our administrators will be in touch with you in terms of the development of the application process, assuming that there is an application process.
Hope so.
And if there's ever any other information that might be helpful, or if the committee lending our voice to your efforts can ever be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. I certainly think that we would be, I imagine, in favor of sending correspondence to the administration to let them know that this is something that could benefit this community.
Yeah, actually, piggybacking on the idea that City Council did just a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago, about the, sending a resolution to the state legislators
Yes.
about not local aid. If you guys wanted to do that,
And we have in the past, and I certainly think this would be another time we would be happy to
yeah, it can
do
only
that.
help. I'm just send, the Governor Baker, a letter saying, hey, this is something we'd like you to release money for, and, don't ask, you don't get, so let's ask and see what we can get.
Sure, and I'd certainly be happy to entertain a motion to send that correspondence to the governor and his administration, and make sure that they know that this is a school district that could benefit from the further appropriation of that funding.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, and I'll certainly be in touch about that correspondence the next day.
Thanks. Here for
Thank you,
guys.
Representative.
Thank you, guys. All right, take care.
Okay, our next agenda item is a continuation of a discussion that we've had on a number of occasions, starting from last spring, and I'd asked Dr. McSweeney to join the school committee. Dr. McSweeney now is in her third month as our Director of Special Education, and certainly whenever we bring in an administrator, we try to warn them that your portfolio will be full, that the nights on occasion will be long, and the tasks won't always be easy. I certainly think that has been as true for Dr. McSweeney as it has been for any of the administrators that we've brought in recent memory. I'm just going to provide a little bit of background for the specific issues that have led to tonight's discussion, and then we'll get into questions that the committee might have and any information that Mr. Sheehan or Dr. McSweeney might like to share. But last spring, a decision was made to move some programs, special education programs, that were located at particular schools. Specifically, the Insights program at Willett Elementary School was partially moved from Willett Elementary School to Thatcher Elementary School. The ABLE program, which was housed at Brennan Middle School, was and if there's a more accurate description, by all means, feel free to interrupt, but was essentially moved and renamed and brought to Coelho Middle School. The committee knows that it was communicated to us in a manner that not all of us would have preferred via open forum, that there were some concerns with regards to the implementation of the programming, particularly some of the programming at Thatcher. At that time, which it was only in that same meeting in June that the committee was told about the shifting of the programs. We've discussed that on a number of occasions, and I've expressed the concerns of the school committee to the superintendent about the lack of communication running up to that actual decision to move those programs. But after that evening, we asked the administration to make an additional presentation about what planning had gone into implementing those transitions. We then brought the topic back up when we reconvened in August to seek assurances from the administration that the programs had been properly prepared and that students and families would be well served. And it was brought up on our agenda in November, was the last time that we had asked for a briefing on this. Candidly, as I've expressed to the administration, and as I know many on the school committee are aware, there have been a significant number of concerns raised by families who are involved in these programs. The concerns, and when you're on the school committee, you get concerns, as we all know, of all different stripes. Sometimes they seem concerns that are affecting a very small demographic. Sometimes they're concerns that are on a larger scale. The frequency in which the concerns have been raised and the consistency of the concerns that have been raised, I have found very troubling. And as I've said before, the lack of communication beforehand puts the school committee in a very difficult position, both to answer those concerns and then to support the decisions that were made prior to the school committee being notified. So exactly where we are in terms of the implementation and what issues still need to be ironed out is sort of what I think we'd like to hear a little bit about tonight. I expect that there'll be some questions, and I expect that this is an issue that we will revisit in the coming months. I don't think anyone on this school committee has ever claimed to be an expert in special education, and I don't think we've ever suggested that we have a better plan than the ones that are being put forth. But as the only 9 individuals that work directly for the members of the community, it is our expectation that we'll be informed, and it is our expectation that whatever plan is implemented will be done in a way that benefits the students and the families of the district. And when we have mounting evidence that that might not be the case, that's when we need to have these types of discussions and figure out exactly what it is that we're doing to make sure that if there are still issues, that they're being resolved. And so with that, I would ask Mr. Sheehan and Dr. McSweeney to take us through what are the challenges that we've seen as these programs have been implemented in the move from Willett to Thatcher and from Brennan to Coelho, and what are some of the issues that you're anticipating we'll have to resolve in the coming months to make sure that we can finish the school year perhaps in a more effective manner than we have begun the school year. So, Mr. Sheehan.
I would, Mr. Murphy, just add or amend one statement that you made with regard to the ABLE program being moved and over to Coelho. It wasn't only moved, it was redesigned, and that created some of the concern and problems.
Sure.
Other programs that were going to be better developed within the school district as an alternative site for special education children wasn't designed to the degree that it should have been, which created the angst when Linda McSweeney took over, or Dr. McSweeney took over as the special education director. And so programs, in fact, had to be, created, and personnel had to be shifted within the district. But I can say this to the committee and to the public at large. Number one, we have 77 current programs within the school district for special education kids, which number 1,018 special education kids. So we service a large population. It is our responsibility by which to provide programming that meet the needs of students. That's our job. Along with that is the recognition at team meetings by parents that they can accept or reject the recommendation of teams in which they are an equal partner and participate in teams. So when students enter programs, it's to the best ability of all the people sitting on that team making that decision that that is the appropriate placement or the best placement or least restrictive environment for individual students. That doesn't always work. Sometimes it's not the best placement. Sometimes it doesn't work. That's why we have a review process. That's why we go back to the board. That's why we say, do we have a program within the Attleboro Public Schools of the 77 to meet the needs of the child? And if we don't, we have to find a program for that child.
Mm-hmm.
But make no bones about it, this administration works feverishly every single day to provide programming and trying to meet the needs of every single child who has an IEP within the district.
Sure.
So I'll hand
Yeah.
it over to Dr. McSweeney.
I thank you for allowing me to come and share some of the work that has already been accomplished and will continue to guide my work and the work of all the special educators in the district. It's our focus and priority to make sure that we're supporting students of Attleboro. We want to keep our students here in the community. As I began my position, it was evident there were 3 focus areas. One was to carefully assess the programs that we have in place now. Also, the second would be to consider student needs and services that are required, and to work as a team with the central office and building-based administration to evaluate what is and what needed to be accomplished. As you're aware, the evaluation of our programs and student needs is complex work, and you spoke of that, intensive work. It's work that requires intense planning and will not and does not stop. It was evident that the transition from one school year to the other this fall with our special educated programs did not go as smoothly as we would have hoped. There were a variety of reasons that had been expressed to me for this concern as I entered my role, and it was an area that I needed to jump on board and focus in on immediately. What I do know is the importance of ensuring the least restrictive environment for all of our Attleboro students. This requires a range of services and continuum of programs from preschool to elementary to middle school to high school and to the 12-plus programs. It's a process that continually requires evaluation of staffing, budgetary planning, reorganization, and distribution of resources. There has been much work in the evaluation and reorganization of resources. As I began my position in October, there was an immediate need to look at the service provisions for our students. This required a careful analysis and redistribution of related services, such as speech and language, OT, PT. Student individualized educational plans and services were reviewed, program needs identified, schedules analyzed, and reallocation of staffing completed to align with student needs. This was time-intensive work on the part of many individuals, and I wish to acknowledge the flexibility of the Attleboro staff and administration as these changes were made. This speaks to the excellence of our Attleboro staff and the teams of teachers, service providers, and administration that I worked with to complete this assignment and to make sure that our students receive what they needed. Additionally, assessments of current program were undertaken at each school, and based on student needs, a reorganization was done at the middle school level with the addition of the student support program. Again, students that went from the ABLE program over to Coelho and then needed to reorganize again based on student needs. And so we looked and we opened up another program based upon what we saw at that time.
Okay, can we just hold for 1 second?
Sure.
'Cause I think we're seem to be zeroing in on one of the elements of this that has raised our concern. The advent of the new program, which is based at Wamsutta Middle School, correct? That is one program, and was the name of it the student support program, or is that just a description of that program?
It's student success program?
Student success program?
Yes.
Okay. And that's a single program with X number of students
Yes.
housed at Wamsutta?
Yes.
All middle school age students?
Yes.
Okay. And
It's a
that
thi-
was initiated when?
That was initiated in November.
Okay. As a response to deficiencies that were identified in the implementation of the programs at the beginning of this year, is that accurate?
Yes, but I'd also have to say, based on what we were seeing as student needs
Okay.
at the time,
Okay.
which we need to always be flexible and aware.
But that statement is very accurate with regard to the redesign from the ABLE program to the Coelho program.
Sure.
Some of those kids, we recognize the fact that another program, in fact, would be necessary to meet those children's needs.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I just further comment before you might have questions, but
Sure.
improving our practice, and I want to state that and stress, is something that we continue to do. We realize that, you know, as we are building programs and moving programs and developing a continuum of services, that we will still need to look at that, and we will find that there may be at any point in time a need for reallocation of staff or some redesign, restructure. I think the openness to that needs to be expressed. And what I find to be most helpful is the feedback that I do receive from families and the ability to address their concerns. And I encourage families to contact me as we work together to build strong, effective educational programs for the students. And we certainly are working very diligently with the building principals as well as the administration to make sure that we do not see the transition not go smoothly.
Right.
Because we want to see that for students. We want to make
And
sure
also
that that
meeting
happens.
with the parent advisory group
Mm-hmm.
to, as a voice for the special education parents out there.
Sure.
Of what programming is necessary or where the programs are.
Okay. Mr. Withers?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McSweeney.
You're welcome.
So I understand your response as to what's been done about the program that moved from and was changed from Brennan to Coelho, and now what you've done to kind of help alleviate those problems. What about the Insights program and how that moved from Willett to Thatcher? Because I understand there was a lot of, well, I know there was a lot of concerns and complaints among families about that move as well and what was going on there. Has there been anything done at Thatcher to address those?
Yes. We had to go in, and I said all schools in the elementary too in Thatcher, and really looked at service provision.
Mm-hmm.
And were we making sure that we were providing the services that were on the student's IEP? So there was a reallocation done
Okay.
of service providers to address those needs,
When was that done?
again in November. And I have to say that it's a team of people that are working. I have to
So, and
express that. It's the diligence of a whole
Because we
team that are
allocate
working,
the place.
and I have to thank them for
Sorry,
their
go
hard
ahead.
work too, because it was a
Right.
lot of analysis that had to go into looking at schedules and reallocating staff and making sure we're meeting their needs. But you were absolutely right. There was, when I came on board,
Mm-hmm.
a concern that was
Thank you.
expressed there.
Thank you. Mrs. Scales, then Mr. Sturz.
I know it's a daunting task, and I know that past directors have had a trouble keeping up with it. But if we can update the program descriptions so that parents know when they're going to the next level what's available and what's out there with the changes. I don't know if it's up to date on the website at all. I know the past director was maybe working on it, but I think it's best so parents will know what is available. I mean, you said there's 77 different programs. It would be helpful for parents to know what's out there.
Mrs. Sturz.
Thank you. Dr. McSweeney, so the program that went to Coelho, it was altered, is that correct? My understanding from what I heard, it was changed from the previous year?
What had happened when the program went over there, there was the opportunity to have the children included in more of the general ed classrooms with supports, but included. And for a majority of those students, a vast majority, that was very successful. For some students, that did not meet their needs, and that was the reason that we needed to redesign, redistribute, reallocate resources and develop a new program.
So, to follow, so effectively, we tried to do that for all of the student body in that program.
And we had some support, yes, we had some supports, but it wasn't enough for a
Okay.
few of those students.
Okay, so now it's effectively broken into two different programs. The existing program at Coelho, where it is what you guys established this year, and now the new program over at Wamsutter? Or I mean, yeah,
Yes,
Wamsutter.
yes.
Understand, thank you.
Mr. Larson.
Thank you again for coming, Dr. McSweeney. And I realize that you're still in the process of reviewing, obviously a great number of programs. But thinking back to an exercise that we participated in one of our last issues just a few months back, would it be worth later on this spring having a series of open houses at each one of the schools? And we can certainly help participate along with the staff at the schools and invite the parents in so that we can talk with them, one-on-one or in small groups, at their home schools, so we can kind of get a feel, as you said, a lot of it's still being reviewed to see where everybody's at, but, similar to what we did with the busing, give people an opportunity over the course of a couple nights to come in, make sure there aren't any concerns, as they finish up this school year and are looking forward to the next school year. If there's any questions that they might have, then maybe we can head those off and have a better transition from this year into next year. And, I think there are a lot of positive things that came out of the last time that we did that. We generated a master list of concerns and things to work on, and I think everybody was working from the same page at that point. And I would think maybe you and the administration could kick that idea around a little bit and come back to us, and if that's something you think would be helpful, I guess I would strongly suggest it.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Mr. Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate you giving us the background again on this, because it's been a while. I've said it many times before, it's called special education for a reason. And there's all type of logistics with it and with the programs that we have. I'm a strong supporter of Dr. McSweeney. I think everybody on this committee knows that. And she was just put into the job, and there's going to be challenges. But I think as the chairman mentioned, you know, when he talked about, well, we've got complaints from maybe a small group or whatever, what we can't forget, I should say, is that special education occupies about 24% of our budget, out of a $64 million budget. So it's extremely important to us. And I think probably what I want to see, what Mr. Lawson just said, is there has to be a better communication of what the needs are to the school committee and to other supporting group aspects, one of them, when we're going to make some changes that are going to affect special education. We need to all be on it. If it's a funding issue, well, you're not going to get funding unless it comes through this committee. So changes being made without proper funding should be questioned moving forward. I mean, if you're going to change something, we need to know about it. We need to know the pros, the cons of doing such. We're going to change something that is going to affect many students, and by being special ed students, it's going to affect him in probably a more negative way than it would the average classroom student, and we just can't have that. And I don't know how to put my hands all around it, but I really just think that, you know, a plan has to be brought to us. We're going to be coming up with the budget cycle pretty soon. So we do have problems, and I'm sure now that you're in a position, Dr. McSweeney, that you have some answers for this with your staff. But those things have to be resonated to the school committee and how we can fund these properly. And so we can basically allow time for people to adjust to any type of plans that we want to make. I am not a fan at all of any time we make a change on the fly. Sometimes we have to because of financial reasons. I always thought it caused more harm than good, and especially in this scenario. So I think, as Bill said, you know, we need to keep people informed moving forward of how we want to do this, and we have to make sure that we have funding to do this, and we're not just trying to solve one problem at one school while creating another problem at another school. And I'm sorry, I know that sounds kind of vague, but
No, I don't
we're in
think,
the budget process, and we just need to make sure that we have a plan moving forward so we can alleviate the majority of these concerns. There's always going to be concerns with special education. We know that. Well, I know that. I think everybody knows that. We try to do the best we can, though, and we owe it to do the best we can. But we also owe it to those that are affected by these decisions to make sure that we are giving them the most heads up we can, and we're giving them a plan that is viable, not only to the students but financially. So that's all I ask, that we come up with something that has a lot of sense and to do it. That's all.
thank you, Mr. Tyler. Mr. Sheehan?
Mr. Tyler, I don't believe it's vague at all. I think it's right out there. The bottom line is that we need to create additional programs for other kids in the district. We know, and we have the same philosophical approach as you want us to, and that is providing programs within the district allows us to educate our children right here in Attleboro. We don't have to send kids out of district. That's very, very important. That's cost effective. Keeping in mind all the time that we have to educate these children under the law in the least restrictive environment possible for those children. Mr. Lawson, I think it was an excellent recommendation. I absolutely will explore this further and put it in motion to have special education open houses where especially children transitioning from elementary school 4th grade to a middle school program, or 8th grade students transition to a high school program, or high school students transition to a 12+ program. I think those are very, very important suggestion and recommendation, and it's very prudent. There is a lot of anxiety out there amongst all parents, let alone parents who have special education children, that in fact go from one program to another. And the comfortableness of going from elementary school and then going to a middle school is somewhat horrifying at times for parents. And to do this beforehand and do it in May and June, or I think it's an excellent recommendation, and we will certainly implement that.
Thank you, Mr. Chin. Mr. Withers.
Thank you. I want to take a step back a little bit here. And Dr. McSweeney, I appreciate what you've told us and the steps that you have taken and are taking to correct these issues. And it sounds like you're making progress, and I appreciate that. I think the bigger problem or concern for me, and it kind of builds on a little bit what Mike was saying in communication, and we've talked about communication a lot here. After buses, it's probably what we've talked about the most. But when we first heard about this in June, we were surprised, and we asked, are we going to be able to handle the transition? And we were assured that we would be. And then in August, as we're getting closer to the year, the same thing happened. Are we ready for these moves? And we were, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And clearly wasn't fine. And it's, January, and we're talking about it now. And that's, it feels like almost like a broken record sometimes. Like, it shouldn't happen.
I'm not saying that any of it should happen. The bottom line is that, once again, you have 1,018 children with IEPs. You received a letter or two or whatever. Parents also play a role with regard to signing IEPs and programmatic things. A lot of times, parents are at a certain level, and then you have the other team members who are professional educators. And parents, they lean on us to make the right decisions for their kids a lot of times. And we make the best guesstimate as we think that program will work. That's not always the case. We're dealing with human beings. Sometimes those programs don't work for some kids. Therefore, we have to have other programs within the district that we create that may meet the needs of the children. But again, that's not in the absence of parents. We don't do that in the absence of parents. So what you need to know is that there isn't a week that goes by that we're not looking at the special education program in a systemic way. For example, there will be a special education program at Brennan School next year. We will be creating a special education program in each of the middle schools, because I don't want to send kids across town, and I want them to be with their peers coming from their elementary school and going to Brennan or their appropriate middle schools. So we're looking to develop programs that may be a little bit different, because a lot of special education kids have a little different needs. So we want to try to match up those needs with the programs that we're creating. No different than spending in the last week a few hours, I'm going to say 3 or 4 hours in the last week, with regard to how are we going to create a different 12+ program that meet the needs of those children that we currently have and are going to the next step. And so we're looking at, do we do this as an in-service program within our district, or is there a better program outside our district, and that's more cost-effective? So we're looking at that every single day.
Which is good, Mr. Witherstar.
No, and I didn't mean to imply, and I don't think I did, but if I did, I apologize. I didn't mean to imply that I or anyone would expect there to be no or even few complaints, that the district would get or that we would get. I mean, I realize that that's going to happen when you're dealing with this number of kids. And my point was just that it was a specific issue that, we had addressed before the fact, and there were several. But
I understand the issue very
Yeah,
much.
I mean, a couple things. I mean, one, as has been said in a variety of ways, no one expects a perfect game when it comes to problems that are this complex. 1,000 students on IEPs, everyone with very nuanced needs, trying to provide the best education possible in the least restrictive environment. There will definitely be complaints. There will be definitely times where the district falls short of where we want to be. The volume of complaints, as I said, the consistency of the complaints, the very easy to follow narrative about the decision-making process and how people were affected isn't acceptable. We've said that on a number of occasions. I appreciate the efforts that are being described here tonight to fix them, but for those looking to skip to the end of the discussion is we have to do better as a district. And I don't think we're talking a little bit about sort of the vision for special education. I think there's a very strong consensus amongst the school committee, the administration, the staff, and the community about what we expect out of our special education program, and frankly, all of our programs. We want the personalized learning. We want students and families to be well served. We want students to have the best opportunities possible when they graduate, whether that's after grade 12 or beyond. So I think I'm confident that we're all on the same page in terms of the vision and what our expectations are. But the implementation and the execution has to be better. There are families in this district who found out that their programs that they were well accustomed to were being moved with 2 weeks left in the school year. Not acceptable. If there are new programs that are being developed in the hope that we can better fulfill the vision that we're talking about now and meet our goals, that's great. That's the work that has to be ongoing. And the communications has to be better. It's got to be better with the school committee, and it's got to be, most importantly, better with the families that are affected. We should not be hearing from the number of families that we have that they were told with such short notice. Unless it can be justified, which I think this school committee has demonstrated a certain level of reasonableness. If it can be justified, different story. But if there are going to be changes that are going to affect the families in this district who the 9 of us work for, we need to be told. And I'm confident of everyone's, what you're trying to do. I'm confident of the intentions. I'm confident of your ability to do it. But the execution in this instance wasn't good enough, and I think the open house is a good idea. I mean, obviously, communication is a theme we come back to with regularity, and we'll come back to it with this. But this is a district that if you're the parent of a student with child with special needs, I think that this is a place with an enormous number of dedicated professionals who want to provide the services that are necessary, and I think we prove that on a daily basis. But in this instance, there can't be any excuses. Like, the transition with those programs wasn't good enough, and we've got to be better prepared for it. And if there's something that we as a committee can do to support you in that, whether that is using the governing body as a platform to communicate in a better way, or whether or not it's advocating for funding of some kind, please tell us, because we want to support the administration, we want to support the programs, but when we haven't even been told about the programs, the expectation that we're going to support them, I think, is unreasonable. So I think that I've certainly had enough of the discussion for the time being. I think we probably all have, and we're going to revisit this issue in February and get a sense both in terms of how these programs the implementation of these programs are going, and whether or not there are any additional changes like the ones that we were told about tonight, and whether or not there are any programmatic changes being anticipated for the upcoming school year, because it would be better for us to be told in February. So I think we'll table this for the time being, and we'll come back to it in February. And again, if there's anything we can do to support you or to help communicate to the community what it is that we're doing, you just have to tell us, and we'll be happy to do that. So thank you again, Dr. McSweeney. I know, again, we're talking about communication issues that came up months before you were even a candidate, never mind a director. So. But I appreciate your commitment to making sure that this works for the families in Attleboro. So thank you again.
And thank you for your support.
Okay, so we'll move on now with just a couple of other, I think, relatively quick items. The committee knows that we have 4, for lack of a better term, focus groups that have been scheduled for the public to comment on the draft essential beliefs and draft mission statement that have been produced by the Envisioning 2020 strategic planning groups. At Attleboro Public School events in the coming weeks, you'll see this blue invitation form. I think this is a lovely design that's been put together. This maps out the schedule for the focus groups and also provides instructions as to how members of the community can offer their comments electronically. And the hope is to collect as many comments and feedback, as much feedback as we can over the coming weeks. And we will then be sending that around to the school committee and to the ad hoc committees so that they can continue their deliberations in the hope of having recommendations prepared for the school committee by early March. But we have the aps2020.weebly.com. That's the website devoted just to the strategic planning group. We have the strategic planning documents are available at attleborowschools.com. Their schedule of meetings is also posted there. They're all public, and I know I actually sat in on the first time I sat in last week on some of the mission vision subgroup, and I described it to someone I don't remember. Who, probably Mr. Tyler. He gets stuck listening to me talk about these things at length sometimes. And I said that I don't have children in the school system, but I feel like if I did, I'd like to think that a couple times a week somewhere out there in the city there's a group of people like the Mission Vision subgroup and the other subgroups talking about these issues and grappling with them and producing the work that they have so far. So on behalf of the school committee, I want to thank Mrs. Scales and Mr. Sawyer for shepherding this process along as well as you have. I'm looking forward to, sometimes you have focus groups, sometimes you get a big crowd, sometimes you get a light crowd. I think some of us have been at both. But we certainly look forward to receiving those comments and answering questions for the community members. And as the Mission Vision group, as their work culminates, we will be really ramping up the work in the strategic planning subgroup and the public engagement subgroup, and actually the cultivation of the actual plan itself. So that's where we are. Does anyone have any questions, or Mr. Sawyer, Mrs. Scales, did I miss anything, or anything we should add? Mrs. Scales and Mr. Sawyer are exempt from the facilitation of the focus groups themselves, so the committee members will be taking that on while they continue to work with the ad hoc groups. Any questions or comments? Mr. Tyler?
Just a comment. I'd like to thank, the ad hoc group. They're doing a great job, and I did get to actually not sit in, but I was coming off of one thing, and they were coming in, so I asked them a couple questions. But they're actually a great committee, and I try to throw them a couple curveballs, and they caught every one of them very well, as I may add. So it's just great to see this moving forward. They're doing a great job. It seems like they really are focused on the end result on this. And again, like I said, I just had a couple questions for them to see if they were totally engaged in what I felt might be some priorities, and they had answers for every one of my questions, and I really appreciated that. So again, I just appreciate the time and effort they're putting in. This is what Attleboro is about, a community effort to make our schools a better place, and work like this actually is what makes that a reality. So again, thank you, Lori and Dave and all the members of that committee. Very appreciative.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. And again, we'll be revisiting this frequently in the coming months, but we're getting close on the mission vision part, and that's certainly a necessary and good foundation. Our next agenda item is actually just a sneak preview as to our one of our agenda items from our January 26th meeting. Mr. Sawyer has been leading a small group of administrators who have been trying to pull the Attleboro School District into the 21st century with regard to communications. And members of the community, I think, are largely aware by now that there's been a proliferation of Twitter and Facebook pages assigned to specific school buildings. It's part of our effort to make sure that the district's overall narrative is being conveyed and that the building communities are informed as to what's happening in each building. I'm hopeful that on January 26th we'll be able to have a demonstration of sorts. And this work, by the way, of making sure that we're able to communicate through all the various mediums that are available to us is in conjunction with the work that has been happening, particularly at the elementary school level, to make sure all of our families are enrolled in the Aspen portals, to make sure that they have access to the information that comes out through those programs. And Mr. Story, do you have anything you wanted to add on that, either the Aspen part or the social media part, or do you want to just let the anticipation build till January 26th?
I think we're making real headway on getting all the elementary parents into the Aspen portal. The report card for the first time was available through the portal for people to view, so I think that helped. And Aspen has released a app for mobile devices, and we are looking into how to use that to be part of the total strategy.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Mrs. Tyler?
Just a quick comment. I mean, Aspen is great. I mean, as a parent, it's a great system. I really can't wait to see its full potential in the school system. But I would just anticipate that when we're moving forward with this, being a member of the policy subcommittee, that we're going to be seeing some policies moving forward that are going to restrict what this committee and community may feel is a proper or improper use of expanding on social media or whatever in our schools. So I just hope that we're working on that at the same time. I mean, it's great to expand, but it's also a dangerous place. It's a great place to be, but it can be a very dangerous place to be too. So,
Yeah, there needs to be a revision. We currently have a internet use acceptable use policy, but it didn't anticipate, Web 2.0, and it's gonna need to be revised.
Yeah. And again, this is new territory in a variety of ways. I mean, certainly from a policy standpoint, that's true. But it's just new for us because up until recently, school districts didn't have to spend time being concerned about these types of things. And I know that there are many dedicated professionals who didn't anticipate Twitter and Facebook being part of their responsibilities, and I get that, and the committee understands that. But communication is part of our responsibility. We have to view ourselves in the competitive environment that public schools now operate in, and we've got to be making sure that we're using every resource available to communicate what it is that makes the Attleboro schools different from our competitors, which is what other districts are and other educational institutions. So with that, again, January 26th, we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're able to do now that maybe we couldn't before we were able to develop these programs. Finally, we have our one subcommittee report tonight. Our Curriculum Instruction Subcommittee met on January 5th. Ms. Singer?
Yes, so at our meeting on January 5th, we had several agenda items, one being Mr. O'Connor from the high school came to give an update on changes to the program of studies for 2015 and 2016, a lot of housekeeping updates as well as course changes. The biggest item being the full implementation of the prerequisites that the full committee had approved last year will be implemented this coming school year. We also looked at the drafting process for the FY 15-16 school year of the calendar. The administration, along with the Leadership Advisory Board, are developing the academic calendar for next year, so they hope to have a draft to us by the end of the month. Is that correct?
Yes.
End of the month.
Tomorrow after school.
Oh, I'm sorry?
I mean, tomorrow or
Oh,
tomorrow
okay.
after school.
Okay.
We can come back tomorrow night.
Well, we're already here, so.
That's true.
And then DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, oversees compliance by the school district to laws related to educational requirements for students. And they have, this is done through what's called a coordinated program review. So Ms. DeAngelis came and discussed how that review process works, who's responsible for the four components of that and the timeline for that. So Dr. McSweeney will be responsible for the special education compliance pieces. Ms. DeAngelis will be responsible for the civil rights methods and other general education requirements, as well as English learner education. And Sue Edmonds is going to be responsible for the career and voc tech pieces of that. We need to submit all of our compliance documents by May 15th. And the policy committee may be seeing some revisions or changes and additions to certain policies that we have coming to them. So just as a heads up with that. And then Chairman Murphy came to discuss subcommittee responsibilities. So looking at committee's goals and the purpose of truly what the subcommittee does. Are you going to all of them, or just
I
ours
sure
was the
am.
more that, yeah, so you'll all be receiving a visit from Chairman
Isn't that
Murphy
nice?
regarding
Exciting, right?
subcommittee
So another thing to look forward
responsibilities.
to.
And that concludes my report, unless Ms. DeAngelis or Mr. Sawyer have anything to add. Go
The
ahead.
only thing I wanted to add is we just got notification this week that McKinney-Vento will also be part of our coordinated program review. We're one of the communities selected, so there are
Lucky us.
criteria that we will need to review and submit. They have a deadline of June 15th, so I will be working on that as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler.
Just a quick question for Julie on this one, or even Dave if they want to. When we're talking about a coordinated program review, can you give me a little bit of the criteria that we're using for, sounds like a very broad, sounds like it's painted with a very broad brush over here.
No, it's not.
I
It's-
gave a couple of pages of the explanation at the school committee of the specific criteria. So we're giving you, it sounds like a broad brush, but there are absolutely specific criteria. So civil rights has about 27 categories, and they ask for specific policies, and then they ask us how are we implementing that and demonstrate the evidence of that. So how are you providing certain training? So we have to show them the training, we have to show them the policy, and we have to show how we implement it in the district.
It's something that happens every 6 years.
I know that it happens, I just want to see the criteria that they're using in this school
So
year to do it.
if you go on the
Return.
Department of Ed's,
Thank
if you go on the
But-
Department of Ed's website and you look at PQA, that's the part of the website, or I can actually send it to you through email, you can actually see the specific handbook and all the criteria. I gave a 2-page,
Yeah. Abbreviated.
overview and preview, because I didn't want to give you all the criteria, because there are, depending on what the criteria is for each area, there are many elements that we need to meet. But I certainly could send you the link, and you could look at the actual criteria for civil rights, for special education, for English language education, for career tech ed. I now have the McKinney-Vento criteria as well, and I'd be happy to share that.
Yeah,
with
why
you.
don't we circulate that to the full school committee?
Happy to do that.
Just so everyone has a sense as to exactly what it is that they're looking at and what it is that you have to sort of deal with.
And if I will, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that one of the criteria that we're using is a student-based issue in here. I mean, what we may feel as being older generation, shall we, like you all included,
What about Mr. Stuff?
that we feel, and that's exactly doing it for Tyler's effort over here. They may feel that there's something that interests them more. So I just, and it's happened time and time again. It's supposed to be a student-driven basis of how we evaluate all programs that we have here in the Attleboro schools. And so I just want to make sure that that's part of the I didn't see that piece of paper until tonight. I just want to make sure, because again, we may feel something's important to us, or traditional, if you will. It's not tradition to them. It's not important to them. They have other areas that they want to proceed in life about. So I just want to make sure that that's part of the evaluation system. That's all I ask. I'm not trying to take it
Department of
apart.
Ed actually sets the criteria for us, so just so that you know, there are certain criteria they ask us to meet. Some of the things are certainly in special education, that they are looking at records, they are looking at programs, they are looking at individual services that we provide for students. So they also come on site and do an evaluation. So this year, it's the first time that we'll be going through the web-based monitoring where we upload the documents. They piloted it back in 2009 with about 4 or 5 districts. They did that because they want to say, how are you complying with the regulations that we have in place? The other piece of that is they actually come on site and do interviews in all of those areas with staff members, and they look at our programs to see what we have geared towards students, and then they have findings. So we're either get fully implemented or partially implemented, and they come back to us and ask us specifically to maybe add some components or to, respond to, we need more information about this. So the Department of Ed will also be coming on site to do that interview process as well.
Okay.
And if I may share too, that they will be surveying parents as well, so it's a two-way communication.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Thank you both for your representation.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I was going to see if you were done.
Oh, I am done. That completes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. I would just say that, given the fact that these processes only play out every 6 years or so, I think it would be useful, and I appreciate very much the administration making sure that the committee was informed that this process was starting. But I think it might be something that we want to include on an agenda later in the spring so we can hear an update as to the work, as how it's unfolding, and if there are any hiccups that have been identified. And sort of how we're addressing those. So just given the fact that this just doesn't happen that often, I think it would be a good idea for us to get a sense as to how it's going. So, okay, we have a finance and budget subcommittee meeting on tomorrow,
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
You're all welcome.
We look forward to seeing you there. Mr. Stowe, any concerns about Andrew Luck against the Patriots? You think it'll be fun? Before the meeting, you had a lot of
We had a lot.
Okay, we'll see what happens. More
It
non-committal.
was more Mike's.
It's gonna be a close game.
There we go. Okay, Mr. Stowe says close game. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion adjourned.
Yeah, my daughter did as well. I think she was in the same one. Yeah, man.